Hi everyone, this is Amani Michael with Intuit.Learning, and today I'm bringing you a video about how to learn any new skill. And the skill that I'm going to be learning is actually to speak Japanese and Swedish over the next 90 days. A lot of people approach me and ask, how do I begin to learn a language? A lot of people feel that they couldn't learn a language without traveling or without some expensive software, or it just seems like a kind of distant, far-off thing. But as someone who's worked with language for many years and someone who speaks several now, due to self-study, not because of travel, not because of this program or whatever, but out of dedication to the practice of learning new skills and in particular learning new languages, I've acquired a few, and so people will ask me, how do I begin that process? So that's what I'm trying to make this video today. As far as why I've chosen these two languages, honestly there's no super great reason. They are among the languages that I have been wanting to learn for a while. There's also other languages like Yoruba. I would like to work on my Arabic, Tibetan, all of these different languages or language groups that I've been wanting to engage. I've just chosen Japanese and Swedish for now, and as soon as I feel more confident in those, then I will also integrate others. It may even be before the 90 days is up. With both of these languages, I'm pretty much starting out with little to no knowledge. I would not say that I speak Swedish or Japanese. I would say that I have a linguist's understanding of these languages, meaning that I have a general idea of their properties, how they relate to different language groups in the world, and different structures, which can be super helpful. So if you're starting out with a language, you might want to invest some time in looking at a grammatical sketch, so getting an idea of how it fits into a linguistic context. I find that really, really supportive in my own process. So in the process of learning a new language, or really with any skill, there are a few things you can keep in mind to help you have a lot deeper and more long-term learning experience. Today I'm just going to share 4 things that really have shown to really augment my learning experience, and those 4 things are going to be intentions, resources, practices, and accountability. So in this video I'm going to talk about each of those and try to share with you a little of how they've aided my learning experience. The first of these things is intentions. So we can understand intentions as goals, but I'm not using that word because we tend to see goals as things that are outside of ourselves, that are distant, that we have to move towards them in order to accomplish them and to manifest those things. So I'm using the word intentions because I resonate with that more, but also because it frames things as already within us. It frames our desires as already within our capacity, and everything that you will be learning about a language or the new skill that you're working with, it's really a process of rediscovery and of learning to trust yourself as you move through that process. As far as learning Japanese and Swedish, I have a few intentions in mind. So first of all, I would like to be able to speak with just about anyone that I meet, and not really have any problems with communication. So I'm hoping to be able to use these languages in a very casual and open context to just be able to communicate with others. Secondarily, I would like to be able to use them in my career and in a work context, so that they're at a level where if I needed to do a translation, or I need to talk with a client, or just engaging anyone, then it's not too far out of reach for me to grab the vocabulary, grab whatever concept it is that I need specifically, and to use that with my already developed skills. That's something I would like to be able to do. And lastly, when you learn a language, it really shapes the way that you understand the world, and it shapes the ways that you engage the world, and that's something that I'm hoping to gain from my experience with Swedish and Japanese, is really to be able to understand the world differently than I already have with the languages that I speak and the concepts I've encountered so far. And next we can start thinking about our resources. So with resources, we want to ask the question, what materials will I be using each day? What kinds of things do you have nearby already that can augment your learning experience, or Do you need to go out and purchase something? How do I begin my learning experience if I don't have the resources, the financial resources and accessibility to be able to get those materials? You know, what kind of options are available to me? That's a question that you want to be asking as you're moving into learning any new skill. And there are tons of resources for all types of skill building, whether you're trying to learn a language, whether you're trying to learn to build a house, whether you want to learn chemistry. There are all types of resources available online for all types of learning. So definitely there are options available to you, and I'll be making a video about some of the things that I most commonly use, but just to share a couple right now. So for Swedish, this is most certainly going to be a book that I'll be using. I love these little books, especially older textbooks, just because I really resonate with the ways that they approach grammar and the ways that they approach explaining concepts. For me, in my learning process, engaging something as a larger concept really helps me when I need to go into the smaller details. Does that make sense? When I'm trying to grasp a new concept, it doesn't really work as much for me to start with the specifics. For some people it may, but it tends to be a lot easier for me if I can grasp a general idea first and then go in and fill out the details. So I'll be using a textbook like this, and you can see it just has, just so it can come up a little bit clearly. So it's just going to introduce different concepts within the language and has them organized in different chapters. So I'll be using a text like this both for Swedish and Japanese. I don't know if this is the resource that I'm going to be using for these languages, but I'll definitely be using something like this as my primary mode of learning. Beyond that, I'll also be using things like learnit, which is a site where I can post my writing and have first language speakers of that language send me edits and suggestions on how I can clarify what I'm trying to communicate. As I'm learning, I'll also be looking for different media like movies, different music that I can listen to, following people on Twitter or on Facebook, pages in different languages that I can use to engage learning in the ways that I naturally would. So a lot of times people are learning different things based upon what they think, you know, how they think they should be learning them, but in actuality, the ways that we should be learning are the ways that already make sense to us. So learning to use the language in the context that you already use it. Talk about the things that you already talk about. Learn the vocabulary that you already are using, you know, that kind of process. And I'll just be using things like these grammar books to help guide my process as I'm establishing a foundation. And over the course of these 90 days, that will continue to shift as my competencies, as my skills shift, and I need to have a deeper experience. So with your resources, you really want to know what's available to you for your given skill and start to think about how to organize those resources, which leads us to our next point. So here we arrive at practices, and practices are going to talk about scheduling also. So do you plan to study each day? How much do you plan to study each day? If it's daily, if it's a certain amount of times a week, are you going to set a minimum number of hours, number of minutes? How are you going to approach these questions of managing your time? Time management is huge in learning any new skill because you really have to know how to stay devoted, and part of being devoted is working it into your life. So scheduling is going to help you make whatever skill you're learning become more a part of your daily experience. As far as my practice for the next 90 days, I plan to study 15 minutes each day. I don't know if that is going to sound like a lot to you or it's going to sound like very little. To each person it's going to be different. For me, that's a very small amount of time. I'm used to spending hours each day studying when I study a language, but I'm setting 15 minutes each for each language each day because I know that with studying two languages, I'm going to have my attention divided, I have my efforts divided, and I want to make sure that I'm honoring the experience of learning each language. So I'm going to set it at a minimum though I'm also expecting that I'm going to spend more time with each language as I get interested. So as I'm doing things like these grammar books and working through the concepts there, I will also be seeking out things like movies and music and the things I've already mentioned. And surely if I start a movie for 15 minutes, it pretty much doesn't matter how tired I am, I'm going to continue to be interested and want to watch past that. So I'm going to start with that 15 minutes each day. I'm not going to allow myself an off day. Some people do that. I've done that in the past. I find that when I give myself that space, it really messes up the scheduling that I've set up and gets my practice out of order. And I find it really challenging to get back into a process of studying each day. So I will not be working with a day off. I'll just be continuing each day and really finding ways to rest. If I'm feeling stressed about overworking my mind on trying to master a grammar concept, then maybe I will choose to watch a movie just to rest in that sort of way. So resting doesn't necessarily mean you're not doing anything, but try to find more restful ways to do things and more challenging ways to do things in your practices. And perhaps most importantly, whatever you're doing as a practice, make sure it's intentional. And we have the word intention already, in these 4 points. So we want our practices to respond to reflect back on, and to relate to our intentions. If I'm watching a movie, and I'm watching a movie for 15 minutes for the whole, 90-day period, it's questionable how much I'm going to get out of that experience, because watching a movie only engages passive skills most of the time if I'm watching it in a restful way, right? If I'm not actively looking up words and engaging in an active way, asking questions about the scenes and how the sentences are constructed and everything, I'm probably going to end up at the 90 days with a very passive experience, but that's only part of what I'm hoping to grasp in these 90 days. So what I want to do is make sure that my practices reflect that, and I want to choose diverse options for engaging these languages, engaging my new skills, by touching on them in a lot of different ways. So whatever I'm doing, I'm going to make sure that's intentional, that it responds to the types of things that I'm trying to manifest, and move forward from there. And last but definitely not least, we have accountability. So a lot of people, when thinking about accountability, they're going to think to others, how I can have others hold me accountable. This is a common practice in polyglot and language learning communities. But having others hold you accountable can present a lot of problems. It can put unnecessary stress on your relationships if they're not understanding what kind of accountability you're needing. There's a lot of different questions with that. So I choose usually to opt towards a very self-accountable practice. So for me, when I think about accountability, I really want to be seeking out ways to remind myself of why it is that I want to be learning this thing. If I'm learning this new skill, it's not for no reason. Even if you think it's for no reason, it can just be out of curiosity and a desire to explore new concepts intellectually. That's something. So whatever you're doing regarding accountability, you just want to make sure that it reminds you why you're doing this in the first place. There's going to be days where you wake up and you are stressed about other things, or you just feel like you don't have a desire to learn today, or you missed a few days and so now you're feeling really down about your learning experience. So what are you going to do when it's inconvenient? What are you going to do when it's uncomfortable? What are you going to do when you're afraid? What are you going to do when you feel like you failed? I don't believe in failure, but if you have the feeling that you're not arriving where you want to, not as quickly, or it's taking longer, or you just feel misaligned from your intentions, what are you going to do? What do you have set up to help shift you back into a place of feeling aligned? What's going to remind you of why you started in the first place and what you're really more deeply hoping to manifest with your learning experience. To help myself in my own accountability practice, I'm going to, before I even start learning, take some time to write down all the different experiences that I'm going to be able to have, and all the things that I'm going to be able to have gratitude for and appreciate and explore intellectually all these things I've been curious about and feeling. I'm going to take some time to write a bunch of those out and continue to add to that as I'm learning, so that I can remind myself of, where I'm coming from with my learning and why it is that I'm doing what I want to do. Beyond that, I will also be making a video each month, probably near the end of the month, and in that video I'm going to be sharing some of the things that I've been learning. I will not be pressuring myself to use the language in that context. I've done that in the past with scheduling to make a certain amount of videos in an amount of time, and I found myself wanting to just craft some sort of sentence or something to show off rather than focusing on really integrating my learning into my full self. So I will not be pressuring myself to use the language at all on camera, but I will be sharing different ways that my experience is changing, and if I feel comfortable and confident enough with where I'm at expressing whatever I want to communicate, then I will also share that. But the point will just to be it'll just be to share some of the things that I'm experiencing, and for me that's fulfilling enough to remind me of why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that will serve as accountability for me. We're just getting started with this channel, so you can definitely expect to see a lot more videos on how do I begin to set up a daily schedule and really get into that, or how do I organize my resources and what are 20 resources that I can start using if I want to learn Yoruba today. We'll definitely be talking about all those concepts, so there will be a lot more to share in coming videos. But for now, I just want to say thank you so much for watching and for holding space for yourself and your own learning experience. Learning is a beautiful thing, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity to share some of what I've experienced with you, and hopefully that can serve you as you're learning new things as well. I would love to hear if you're learning something new right now, if you've just started something, or if you're planning to start something. I would love to help you with some of our consultations. We offer language consultations and other learning consultations to help you figure out your learning style and which ways you might want to approach your learning experience. But if you're learning something new right now, or you've recently been learning something, share that below. Go ahead and comment. Tell us what's something you've been learning recently. But if you found this video insightful or entertaining or anything similar, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. We would love to have you join the community space, and also to share with others who get excited about learning and language. So with that, I just want to say thank you again, and until next time, with love and light, Amani.